The boy in the water has my brother's face, but my brother drowned 17 years ago. I'm telling you this now because by the time you hear this, I may have joined him. I took the lighthouse keeper position because no one else would. The previous keeper, a man named Darrow, had vanished 3 weeks prior. Walked into the storm, they said. Left everything behind, including his coffee cup on the kitchen table, a brown ring dried at the bottom like a tide mark. His reading glasses sat folded beside it, as if he'd just stepped away for a moment and would return any second. The supply boat captain helped me carry my bags up the spiral stairs. Her name was Mara. She was maybe 60, with hands that looked like they'd hauled rope since childhood and eyes the color of deep water. She moved through the lighthouse like she'd memorized every corner, her fingers trailing along the stone walls as if reading something written there in a language only she understood. "Storm's coming," she said. "Week-long, at least. Radio gets spotty when the weather turns bad. Sometimes it picks up voices from other places. Other times, don't let it spook you." I nodded, already unpacking my things. Already scratching at my left wrist without realizing it. The skin there is always raw, always red. I've done it since I was 9 years old, and every therapist I've seen has called it a self-soothing mechanism. They don't know what I'm soothing. Mara watched me scratch. Her expression didn't change, but something shifted behind her eyes. At the door, she paused. Darrow kept a logbook. Up in the lamp room. You might want to read it. She pulled her coat tighter against a wind that hadn't started yet. Might not. Her boat disappeared into the gray before I could ask what she meant. The first night, I climbed the spiral stairs to the lamp room. 112 steps. I counted them twice to make sure, the way I count everything when the anxiety gets bad. The lamp itself was massive, a Fresnel lens that caught the last daylight and scattered it into rainbows across the curved walls. Beautiful in a cold way. A machine designed to save lives, standing alone at the edge of the world. The logbook sat on a wooden shelf beside the window, leather-bound, water-stained, filled with Darrow's cramped handwriting. I flipped through the pages, learning the rhythm of a lighthouse keeper's life. Weather observations, ship sightings, maintenance notes, the tedium of isolation rendered in blue ink. November 15th, fog until noon. 2 fishing vessels passed heading north. November 22nd, replaced the backup generator's fuel filter. Storm expected by month's end. November 28th. Can't sleep. Keep hearing something in the walls. Probably rats. November 29th. The voices are getting clearer. She's calling for me. God help me. I think she's calling for me. That was the day Darrow vanished. But the entries continued. November 30th. He's arrived. The new one. He scratches his wrist just like she used to. December 1st, he doesn't know yet. But he will. The water always shows them. December 2nd, patient. I can be patient. 17 years is nothing to the deep. Darrow's handwriting. Darrow's observations. But Darrow had been gone for 3 weeks. I closed the book. My fingers found my wrist, nails digging in before I could stop them. I scratched until the skin burned, until thin white lines rose on the flesh. Outside, the wind began to scream. The storm arrived on the second day like something alive, wrapping the lighthouse in walls of gray water and howling air. I couldn't see the sea anymore. I couldn't see anything beyond the glass except the void, pressing in, hungry and patient. I kept to my schedule. check the lamp every 4 hours. Wind the clockwork mechanism. Log the weather. Eat something from the canned supplies. Try to sleep. Sleep didn't come easy. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the lake. That summer, the way the sunlight looked on the water, so bright it hurt to look at. Thomas reaching for me, his small hand slipping through my fingers like something made of smoke. The water closing over his head like a mouth swallowing. I was 9. He was 9. We were twins, identical in every way except the small birthmark behind his left ear. When we were very young, our mother would check for that birthmark to tell us apart. I let go of his hand because I was angry. I can't even remember why anymore. Some argument about a toy, maybe. Or who got to sit in the front seat on the drive home. Something small and stupid and absolutely unforgivable. He was struggling in the water. He wasn't a strong swimmer. Neither was I, but I was closer to the dock. I could have held on. I could have pulled him toward me, towards safety. Instead, I let go. I watched him sink for 5 seconds before I screamed for help. 5 seconds is forever underwater. On the 3rd morning, I climbed to the lamp room and found the logbook open on the floor. I hadn't left it there. I was certain I hadn't left it there. I remembered placing it back on the shelf, remembered the feel of the leather under my fingers. The newest entry was dated December 8th, yesterday. Darrow's handwriting, cramped and familiar. He's scratching again, just like Thomas did before the water took him. Scratching at his wrist like he's trying to get something out. Or maybe trying to let something in. I read the lines 6 times. My throat closed. My hand went to my wrist, nails digging in before I could stop them. Thomas. Darrow couldn't have known about Thomas. No one knew about Thomas. I'd never told anyone the truth about what happened at the lake. Not my parents, who blamed themselves for not watching us closely enough. Not the therapist they sent me to, who diagnosed me with survivor's guilt and gave me pills that made me feel like I was wrapped in cotton. Not a single soul in 17 years. I tore the page from the logbook. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the paper. I carried it to the lamp room's small stove, struck a match, watched the words curl and blacken and disappear into ash. The hours crawled. That night, I heard someone calling my name from the rocks below. Not someone. Something. The wind, I told myself. Just the wind reshaping itself into sounds that resembled words. Into a voice that sounded like a child. Into my name, over and over, rising up through the stone and the stairs and the walls. I pressed my hands against my ears, counted backward from 100, scratched my wrist until the skin split and blood welled up in thin lines. At 73, the voice changed. It stopped calling my name and started saying something else. Why did you let go? I scratched harder, counted faster. Why didn't you hold on? The voice stopped at dawn. I checked the logbook, dreading what I'd find, hoping I'd find nothing. New entry. December 9th. Fresh ink, still wet to the touch. He thinks he can burn the truth. But water always rises. Water always remembers. And the boy at the bottom of the lake has been waiting a very long time. I slammed the book shut, shoved it into a cabinet, locked the cabinet, and pocketed the key. It didn't matter. None of it mattered. On the 4th day, I found wet footprints on the spiral stairs. Small ones, child-sized, bare feet, perfectly formed, leading from the door at the bottom all the way up to the lamp room. 112 steps of impossible footprints, each one glistening with moisture that shouldn't have been there, Couldn't have been there. They stopped at the cabinet where I'd locked the logbook. The smell hit me then. Lake water. Not ocean, not the salt and brine smell of the sea, but lake water. Stagnant, green, thick with algae and rotting vegetation. The smell of that summer. The smell of Thomas's hair when they finally pulled him out, 3 hours after I let go, his skin already gray and his eyes still open. I gagged, stumbled backward. My heel caught on something soft. A child's shoe, waterlogged. Blue canvas with white laces, the rubber sole peeling away from the fabric. I recognized it. I recognized it because I'd been wearing the matching pair when Thomas drowned. We always wore matching shoes. Our mother thought it was cute. His shoe. Thomas's shoe. Impossible. They'd buried him in those shoes. I'd watched them lower the casket into the ground. I grabbed it without thinking, ran down the stairs, my footsteps echoing off the stone, threw it as far as I could into the churning sea, watched the waves swallow it whole. When I turned around, the wet footprints had reached the door behind me. Night fell wrong. The lamp room called to me that evening, not in words, in pressure, in gravity, in the sick certainty that something waited up there, patient and cold and inevitable. I climbed anyway. What else could I do? The cabinet door hung open. The lock wasn't broken. It was simply open, as if someone had used a key. The logbook lay on the floor, pages fluttering in a breeze that came from nowhere and went nowhere. December 10th. Still Darrow's handwriting, but shakier now, almost frantic. He's remembering. He's finally remembering. The water is patient. The water has always been patient. It waited 17 years for him to come somewhere it could reach. Somewhere the boundary between the living and the drowned grows thin. He thinks the lighthouse is haunted. He doesn't understand. The lighthouse isn't haunted. He is. I threw the logbook against the wall. The spine cracked. Pages scattered across the floor like dead leaves. And then I heard it. Not from outside this time. From inside the lighthouse. From the stairs below me. Footsteps. Small ones. Climbing. Wet sounds with each step. The slap of bare feet on stone. A rhythm I remembered from childhood. From 100 games of tag, from 1,000 races up the stairs to our bedroom. I pressed myself against the lamp, counting my breaths, counting the steps, scratching my wrist so hard my nails left furrows in the flesh. 67, 68, 69. The footsteps stopped outside the lamp-room door. Silence. Then, softly, a knock. A child's knock. 3 small taps, exactly the way Thomas used to knock on my door when he wanted to come in. I didn't answer, didn't move, didn't breathe. I know you're in there. The voice was small, waterlogged. Wrong. I've always known where you are. After an eternity, the footsteps retreated down the stairs. I didn't sleep that night. I don't think I've really slept since. On the 5th day, Mara's boat appeared through the storm. Impossible. No vessel could navigate these waters in this weather. The waves were 20 feet high, crashing against the rocks with enough force to shatter bone. The wind was strong enough to tear shingles from rooftops. But there she was, cutting through the chaos like the sea itself had parted for her. She tied off at the small dock and climbed the path with a canvas bag over her shoulder. I met her at the door. I must have looked like a madman. Unshaven, eyes red and hollow, wrist wrapped in bloody bandages that were already soaking through. You look like Darrow did, she said. At the end. What happened to him? My voice cracked like old wood. Really? Tell me what really happened. Mara set down her bag, pulled out canned food, fresh water, a bottle of whiskey. She moved slowly, deliberately, like someone who'd had this conversation before, like someone who expected to have it again. Darrow came here running from something, she said. That's what this lighthouse does. It attracts people who think isolation will save them from their own minds. People carrying something heavy, something they've never told anyone, something that weighs more every year. I'm not running from anything. She looked at my wrist, at the bandages already spotting red. Darrow said the same thing. She opened the whiskey, poured 2 glasses, handed me one. Right up until he started writing entries in that logbook that he didn't remember writing. Right up until he saw his daughter standing in the waves. My hand trembled. Whiskey spilled over my fingers. His daughter drowned when she was 6, Mara continued. He was supposed to be watching her at the beach. Turned away for 30 seconds to answer his phone. When he looked back, she was gone. The undertow took her. I couldn't speak. The lighthouse doesn't create ghosts. Mara's eyes met mine. Deep water eyes. Knowing eyes. Eyes that had seen this before. It just amplifies what's already inside you. Gives it form. Gives it voice. Makes you look at the thing you've been running from. That's insane. Is it? She finished her whiskey in one swallow. Or is it just honest? She picked up her bag and headed for the door. I wanted to stop her. Wanted to beg her to stay, to take me with her, to save me from whatever was climbing those stairs in the dark. At the threshold, she paused. Darrow walked into the sea on his own, you know. The lighthouse didn't push him. It just showed him what he'd been carrying. And he decided facing the water was easier than facing himself. She looked back at me one last time. You've got a choice to make. Same one Darrow had. Same one everyone who comes here has to make eventually. You can let the water take you. Or you can finally tell the truth, even if you're the only one listening. Then she was gone. Her boat vanished into the gray like it had never existed. I was alone. On the 6th night, I stopped running. I climbed to the lamp room, sat down on the cold floor, my back against the wall, opened the logbook to a fresh page, and I wrote. I wrote about Thomas, about the lake, about the argument I couldn't remember and the anger I couldn't justify, about watching his hand slip through mine and doing nothing for 5 eternal seconds while he sank. About the funeral where everyone told me it wasn't my fault, and how I nodded and agreed and knew they were wrong. I wrote about 17 years of scratching my wrist whenever the guilt got too heavy. About choosing jobs in isolated places. Relationships that couldn't last. A life designed to keep everyone at a distance because I didn't deserve to be close to anyone. I wrote until my hand cramped, until the pages were full, until there was nothing left inside me but the truth, ugly and complete. When I finished, I looked up. Thomas stood by the window, not a ghost, not a monster, just a boy, frozen at 9 years old. Water dripping from his hair, wearing the blue canvas shoe I'd thrown into the sea. His skin wasn't gray like it had been when they pulled him out. It was pink and alive. He looked exactly the way I remembered him from before, from the good days. He didn't speak. He just held out his hand, the same hand I'd let go of. I stood, crossed the room, stopped an arm's length away from him. I'm sorry, I said. The words came out broken, like something that had been locked away too long. I'm sorry I let go. I'm sorry I waited. I'm sorry I never told anyone. I'm sorry I've spent 17 years pretending it wasn't my fault when I knew. I always knew that I could have held on, that I should have held on. Thomas tilted his head. His eyes were the color of lake water in summer. Our mother's eyes. My eyes. I know, he said. His voice was exactly how I remembered it. Exactly how I'd tried so hard to forget it. I've always known. Can you forgive me? He smiled. Sad and soft and terrible. That's not why I'm here. He lowered his hand. I'm here because you needed to forgive yourself. And you can't do that until you stop running. The water dripping from his hair slowed. Stopped. He was fading, becoming translucent, becoming light. Goodbye, he said. Live, okay? Actually live. That's all I ever wanted for you. And then he was gone. The storm broke at dawn on the 7th day. I walked down the spiral stairs. 112 steps. I counted them one last time. At the bottom, I opened the door and stepped outside into calm air and pale sunlight. The world looked washed clean. New. Mara's boat appeared on the horizon. Before she arrived, I went back to the lamp room. I needed to see the logbook one more time, to make sure it was real, to make sure I hadn't imagined everything. The pages I'd written were still there. My confession, my truth. But underneath my final line, in handwriting that wasn't Darrow's and wasn't mine, someone had added 7 words. The water remembers. Now so do you. I closed the book, left it on the shelf, walked down the stairs and out to the dock where Mara was tying off her boat. You look different, she said. I feel different. She helped me aboard, started the engine. The lighthouse grew smaller behind us, a white finger pointing at the sky. Will you be all right? She asked. I thought about the question. Really thought. I don't know, I said. But I'm not going to walk into the sea. She nodded. That was enough. I've been back on the mainland for 1 week now. I rented a small apartment near the coast. I can see the water from my window. I don't look away anymore. I still scratch my wrist when I'm stressed. I still dream about the lake sometimes, about Thomas's hand slipping through mine. But the dreams are different now. In them, I hold on. In them, I pull him up instead of watching him sink. In them, we both make it to shore. I started keeping my own logbook. Every night before bed, I write one line. I remember you, Thomas. I'm sorry. I'm still here. It's not enough. It will never be enough. But it's something. Yesterday, a package arrived at my door. No return address. No postmark. Inside, wrapped in old newspaper, I found the lighthouse logbook. I almost didn't open it. I opened it. A new entry. Fresh ink. Handwriting I recognized. My handwriting. Words I never wrote. Tomorrow. The lake. Don't let go this time.